Sarah Martinez stood frozen in her bedroom doorway, staring at the two suitcases lined up perfectly beside their bed, like soldiers ready for battle. 20 years of marriage, and it had come to this. The divorce papers lay scattered across Michael's pillow, the same pillow where they'd once whispered dreams about growing old together, raising their children, building a life that would last forever. "Mom, what's happening?" 16-year-old Emma's voice cracked from behind her, while 14-year-old David peeked around his sister's shoulder, both children's faces painted with the kind of fear that shatters innocence forever. Sarah's hands trembled as she reached for the legal documents that spelled out the systematic dismantling of everything she'd held sacred. If you've ever felt your family falling apart, this story will give you hope. Like this video and subscribe to our channel if you believe in Mary's power to heal families. To create a spiritual chain of prayer for all broken families, write "heal" in the comments below. Let's unite our faith and ask Mary to intercede for every family watching this. The sound of Michael's footsteps echoed up the stairs, heavy, determined steps that Sarah had learned to dread over the past 6 months. Each footfall seemed to hammer another nail into the coffin of their marriage. When he appeared in the doorway, his dark eyes, the same eyes that had once looked at her with such tenderness, were now cold, distant, like looking at a stranger wearing her husband's face. "The kids shouldn't see this," Michael said quietly, his voice devoid of the warmth that had once made her heart skip. Sarah noticed how he avoided looking directly at Emma and David, how his jaw tightened when David whispered, "Daddy," in the small, broken voice of a child whose world was crumbling. 20 years, Michael. Udum, the words escaped Sarah's lips like a prayer, laden with 2 decades of shared memories. Midnight feedings, first steps, birthday parties, family vacations, quiet Sunday mornings, and 1,000 small moments that had woven their lives together into what she'd thought was an unbreakable bond. But Michael's expression didn't soften. If anything, it hardened further, as if her words had struck some deeply buried nerve. 20 years of what, Sarah? We've been strangers living under the same roof for the past 5 years. We barely speak. The kids see right through our act. Emma started crying. Silent tears that spoke of a young woman forced to become wise beyond her years, watching the foundation of her world crack apart. David stepped forward, small fists clenched, as if he could somehow physically hold his family together through sheer willpower. "We can fix this," Sarah whispered. But even as the words left her mouth, she could see the futility reflected in Michael's eyes. They'd tried counseling, they'd tried date nights, they'd tried everything human wisdom could offer, and here they stood, defeated, with their children as witnesses to their failure. Michael picked up one of the suitcases, testing its weight as if measuring the heaviness of this moment against everything they'd built together. "Some things can't be fixed, Sarah. Some things are just broken beyond repair." Little did any of them know that this devastating moment, when all hope seemed lost and their family appeared beyond salvation, was exactly when heaven would begin to move. But first, how had this couple who'd once been so deeply in love reached such a point of no return? It hadn't always been this way. Sarah closed her eyes and could still see Michael at 25, standing at the altar of St. Catherine's Church, tears streaming down his face as she walked down the aisle in her grandmother's vintage lace dress. His voice had trembled when he promised to love her, in good times and bad, in sickness and health, until death do us part. The congregation had whispered about how deeply in love they were, how their eyes never left each other's faces, how they seemed to glow with an inner light that made everyone believe in forever. Their early years had been a beautiful struggle, 2 kids building a life from nothing but love and determination. Michael worked double shifts at the construction company while Sarah finished nursing school, and they'd collapse into each other's arms each night, exhausted but filled with dreams. When Emma was born, Michael had sobbed at the sight of his tiny daughter, whispering promises about the family they'd build together. David's arrival 2 years later had completed their perfect picture. But somewhere between mortgage payments and sleepless nights, between Michael's promotion to foreman and Sarah's demanding hospital shifts, between little league games and parent-teacher conferences, they'd begun to drift apart like two ships slowly losing sight of each other in an endless ocean. The first crack had appeared when Michael started working weekends to afford the house on Maple Street, the one with the big backyard they'd dreamed of for their children. Sarah found herself parenting alone, watching other couples at school events, while Michael missed another recital, another game, another milestone. "He's providing for us," she'd tell herself, but the loneliness grew like a cancer in her chest. You see, the devil is subtle in how he attacks families. He doesn't come with dramatic destruction. He comes with busy schedules and mounting pressures, with small resentments that build into walls of silence. When David was diagnosed with ADHD, they'd needed to become a team more than ever. Instead, they became opponents arguing over medication, therapy approaches, and whose fault it was that their son was struggling. Michael blamed Sarah's work schedule. Sarah blamed Michael's absence. Neither blamed the stress that was slowly suffocating their marriage. They'd tried everything human wisdom could offer. 3 different marriage counselors over 5 years, each session filled with accusations and defensive walls. Weekend getaways that felt forced and awkward, like strangers pretending to be lovers. Date nights that ended in arguments about who wasn't trying hard enough. The trial separation last Christmas had been Michael's idea. "Maybe we need space to remember who we are," he'd said, moving into his brother's spare room for 3 months. But distance hadn't healed their wounds. It had only proven how easily they could exist without each other. What they didn't know was how desperately their children had begun praying, Emma lighting candles at school mass, David whispering to his guardian angel every night, both asking God to bring their daddy home. Little did they realize that their innocent prayers were already reaching the ears of the Mother of God. Standing in that bedroom, with divorce papers scattered between them, Sarah felt something deeper than heartbreak. She felt the complete dissolution of faith in love itself. If they couldn't make it work, if 20 years could simply evaporate, then what hope was there for anyone? This was the moment of absolute desperation that heaven had been waiting for. That night, after Michael had driven away with his suitcases loaded in the back of his truck, Sarah found herself alone in the kitchen where they'd shared 1,000 family meals. The silence was deafening. No sounds of David's video games, no Emma practicing piano, no Michael's quiet humming while he washed dishes. Just emptiness that seemed to echo with the ghosts of happier times. She wandered into their living room, past the family photos that now felt like archaeological artifacts from a lost civilization. Her eyes fell on the small statue of the Virgin Mary that her mother had given her as a wedding gift. A delicate figure in flowing blue robes, hands outstretched in eternal welcome, that had sat on the mantel for 20 years, largely unnoticed. But tonight, in her deepest desperation, Sarah found herself kneeling before this gentle mother, tears streaming down her face like a broken dam finally giving way. "Holy Mary, Mother of God," Sarah whispered, her voice cracking with raw emotion. "I don't even know how to pray anymore. I feel so lost, so broken. My children are upstairs crying themselves to sleep because their family is falling apart, and I don't know how to put the pieces back together." She pressed her hands to her face, shoulders shaking with the weight of 20 years of accumulated grief. "You know what it means to watch someone you love suffer. You stood at the foot of the cross and watched your own son die. Please, please help me. I'm not asking for a miracle for myself. I'm asking for my children. Emma and David don't deserve this. They deserve parents who love each other, a home filled with peace instead of this terrible silence." Sarah's prayer poured out from the deepest chambers of her heart, each word saturated with maternal desperation. "I've tried everything, Mary. Every counselor, every book, every piece of advice from well-meaning friends. But maybe I need to ask the one mother who truly understands what it means to fight for your family." She reached out and touched the statue's outstretched hand, feeling the cool porcelain against her fevered skin. Michael is a good man. I know he is. Somewhere under all this hurt and resentment, he's still the man who cried when our babies were born, who used to slow dance with me in this very room when we thought the children were asleep. Please, mother of families, show me how to reach him. Show me how to save what we built together. As Sarah prayed, something shifted in the atmosphere around her. It wasn't dramatic, just a gentle warmth that seemed to wrap around her shoulders like a mother's embrace. A subtle peace that settled into her chest where moments before had been only crushing despair. What happened next was so subtle that Sarah almost missed it. As she opened her eyes and prepared to rise from her knees, she noticed something impossible. The small, votive candle beside Mary's statue, which had been extinguished for months, was now glowing with a soft, steady flame. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. She hadn't lit that candle. Emma and David were asleep upstairs, and Michael was gone. Yet there it burned, casting dancing shadows across Mary's compassionate face, as if the Mother of God herself was sending the first gentle sign that this broken family's prayers had been heard. But what Mary had planned for the Martinez family was beyond anything Sarah could have imagined. The very next morning, across town in his brother's cramped apartment, Michael Martinez woke from the first peaceful sleep he'd had in months. But as consciousness returned, so did the weight of what he'd done. He reached for his phone to check work emails and found something that made his blood run cold. 15 missed calls from the elementary school. Mr. Martinez, this is Principal Garcia. David had an episode during math class. He's asking for you specifically. Can you please come in immediately? Michael's hands shook as he dressed. David's ADHD flare-ups always hit hardest during times of stress, and nothing stressed their sensitive son more than family turmoil. Racing through traffic, Michael found himself praying for the first time in years. Not formal prayers, but desperate pleas whispered into the steering wheel. Please let him be okay. Please don't let my choices destroy my son. And what Michael didn't know was that Mary was already weaving her gentle intervention through the threads of this crisis. At the school, he found David curled up in the nurse's office, refusing to talk to anyone except his father. When Michael knelt beside the small cot, his son's tear-stained face looked up at him with such raw need that Michael's carefully constructed walls began to crumble. "Are you coming home, Daddy?" David whispered. "Emma says you're never coming back, but I told her you promised to never leave us. You promised." The words hit Michael like physical blows. In that sterile nurse's office, surrounded by the innocence of his broken son, he felt something shift inside his chest, a crack in the armor he'd built around his heart. But when Sarah arrived 20 minutes later, her face flushed with panic and love for their boy, Michael felt his defenses slam back into place. Seeing her only reminded him of every failed conversation, every night they'd lain in bed like strangers, every moment their marriage had died by inches. Mary's intervention was just beginning. If you want to see more amazing family miracles, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. Over the following days, mysterious circumstances kept pulling Michael back into orbit around his family. His truck broke down outside Emma's school, forcing him to wait in the parking lot where he watched her basketball practice, something he'd missed for months. A work emergency required him to stop by the house for blueprints he'd forgotten, and he arrived to find Sarah helping David with homework at the kitchen table, both of them laughing at some shared joke. Each encounter was like salt in an open wound. Michael could see glimpses of the family they'd once been, but pride and years of accumulated resentment kept whispering in his ear, "It's too late. Too much damage has been done. You'll only hurt them more by staying." Sarah, meanwhile, was fighting her own battle. Every time she saw Michael with the children, her heart soared with hope, but then reality would crash down. How could she trust him not to leave again? How many times could she open her heart only to have it shattered? The crisis point came when David, desperate to bring his parents together, told a lie that would either unite them or destroy them forever. The phone call came at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday night. Sarah's heart stopped when she saw the hospital number on her screen, and Michael's name as the contact. Her hands trembled as she answered, immediately fearing the worst. "Sarah, it's me." Michael's voice was thick with emotion. "David, he's okay, but we're at Children's Hospital." He told his teacher he was having chest pains and couldn't breathe. They rushed him here, called both of us. Sarah was already grabbing her keys, her mind racing through every terrible possibility. "What did the doctors say? Is it his heart? Did something—" "Sarah." Michael's voice stopped her panic mid-sentence. "The doctors can't find anything wrong with him. Nothing. His heart is perfect. His breathing is normal. All his tests came back fine. But he won't stop asking for both of us to be here together. He keeps saying he needs his whole family." When Sarah burst through the emergency room doors, she found a scene that broke her heart wide open. David lay in a hospital bed, looking impossibly small, with Michael sitting beside him holding his hand, both of them watching the doorway for her arrival. The moment David saw her, his face crumpled with relief. "Mommy, Daddy said you'd come." David reached out his other hand, and suddenly Sarah found herself on the opposite side of the bed from Michael, their son creating a bridge between them with his small, desperate grip. "Baby, what happened? Are you feeling better now?" Sarah smoothed David's hair, her maternal instincts overriding everything else. I needed you both here," David whispered, his voice carrying the weight of a child who'd learned to manipulate the only way he knew how. "I was so scared you'd never be in the same room again. I thought if I got sick enough, maybe." The truth hit both parents simultaneously. Their precious boy had fabricated a medical emergency because he was so desperate to see his family whole again. The guilt crashed over them like a tidal wave. But what happened next was undeniably miraculous. As Sarah and Michael sat on opposite sides of David's bed, their son still clinging to both their hands, something extraordinary occurred. The lights in the emergency room flickered briefly, and in that moment of dimness, Sarah could have sworn she saw a gentle figure in blue standing at the foot of David's bed, her hands outstretched over their family in blessing. When the lights steadied, Michael was looking directly at Sarah for the first time in months, tears streaming down his face. "Sarah, I can't do this anymore. I can't keep pretending that leaving was right. Look what we're doing to our children. Look what we're doing to each other." "I've been so angry," Sarah whispered, her own tears falling freely now. "I've been so hurt that I couldn't see past my own pain to what you were going through too." David squeezed both their hands tighter, as if somehow sensing that this moment was the turning point they'd all been desperately praying for. Could the love that had created this beautiful family truly be restored? 3 hours later, in the quiet of their own living room, the Martinez family sat together on the couch for the first time in 8 months. David had insisted on going home as a family, and something in his young voice had made both parents unable to refuse. Emma curled up between her parents like a cat who'd found her favorite sunny spot, while David claimed Michael's lap with the territorial determination of a child reclaiming what was rightfully his. "I want to come home," Michael said quietly, his voice barely above a whisper. "Not just for tonight, not just for the kids. I want to fight for us again, Sarah. I want to remember how to love you the way I did when we were young and stupid and thought love was enough to conquer anything." Sarah looked at him through tears that seemed to wash away years of accumulated bitterness. "Maybe love isn't enough," she said softly, "but maybe love plus forgiveness plus the grace of God. Maybe that's everything we need." What neither of them realized was how perfectly Mary had orchestrated every detail of their reunion. David's emergency hadn't been random. It had occurred on the anniversary of their wedding, a date both parents had been trying to forget. The hospital room they'd been assigned was 320, the same number as their first apartment. The young nurse who'd comforted them had worn a name tag reading Mary Catherine, and her gentle presence had somehow made both parents feel safe enough to let their guards down. Even the timing was perfect. Emma's away game had been cancelled, bringing her home just as they pulled into the driveway, allowing their entire family to walk through the front door together. The evening news played softly in the background, featuring a story about marriage renewal ceremonies that sparked something in Michael's eyes. As they talked through the night, sharing hurts they'd buried and dreams they'd forgotten, something miraculous continued to unfold. With each honest word, each gentle touch, each moment of vulnerability, the love that had seemed dead began to pulse with new life. "Look," Emma whispered around midnight, pointing toward the mantel. The votive candle beside Mary's statue, the one that had mysteriously lit itself during Sarah's desperate prayer, now flickered with such steady, beautiful light that it seemed to bless everything in its glow. By dawn, their neighbors began to notice something different about the Martinez house. Mrs. Rodriguez, walking her dog, paused to watch Michael tenderly kiss Sarah goodbye as he left for work, something she hadn't witnessed in over a year. The mailman commented to his wife that the family on Maple Street seemed to have their light back on. The children's teachers noticed the change immediately. David's anxiety attacks stopped completely. Emma started smiling again in a way that reached her eyes. Both children spoke with pride about their parents in a way that made other students wish their families could find whatever magic the Martinez family had discovered. But the most beautiful transformation was yet to come, and it would inspire an entire community to believe in the power of second chances. 6 months later, the transformation of the Martinez family had become legendary in their community. Their marriage renewal ceremony at St. Catherine's Church drew tears from every witness, the same church where they'd first exchanged vows 20 years earlier. But this time, with a depth of love that could only come from having walked through fire together and emerged stronger. Michael had framed the hospital bracelet from David's emergency and hung it in their bedroom as a reminder that sometimes our children become the instruments through which heaven reaches us. Sarah kept a small journal beside Mary's statue, documenting the daily miracles, not dramatic interventions, but the gentle grace that now flowed through their ordinary moments. Their children bloomed in ways that amazed everyone who knew them. David, once anxious and struggling, became a confident young man who often spoke to his classmates about the power of prayer and family love. Emma started a prayer group at her high school, specifically for students from broken homes, sharing her family's story as proof that even the most shattered relationships could be healed through faith. But the most remarkable change was in Michael and Sarah themselves. They'd learned to see their marriage not as a fragile thing that could break, but as a sacred covenant protected by heaven itself. Their weekly date nights became legendary among their friends, not because they went anywhere fancy, but because the love that radiated between them was so tangible that other couples began asking for their secret. What this miracle teaches us is that the Virgin Mary doesn't just heal individual hearts, she specializes in knitting families back together when all human effort has failed. She understands that when a family breaks apart, the ripple effects touch generations. Children learn that love is conditional, that commitment is temporary, that promises can be broken. But when Mary intervenes to heal a marriage, she's not just saving two people, she's protecting the faith of children, the stability of communities, and the sacred nature of love itself. The Martinez family discovered that Mary works through the ordinary, through broken-down trucks and cancelled games, through children's desperate prayers and mysterious coincidences that align perfectly when we need them most. She doesn't force healing. She creates opportunities for hearts to soften, for pride to crumble, for love to choose itself again. If your family is struggling, if your marriage feels beyond repair, if you're watching your children suffer through your adult failures, remember Sarah's midnight prayer. Remember that the Mother of God specializes in impossible cases, in relationships that seem too broken to mend, in love that appears to have died but still holds the faintest flicker of hope. The Virgin Mary sees every broken family, Every child crying themselves to sleep, every parent who feels like a failure. She knows that healing begins not with dramatic interventions, but with one person humble enough to kneel before heaven and ask for help. The Martinez family story continues to inspire everyone who hears it. Their home has become a place of pilgrimage for struggling couples, a living testament that no marriage is too broken for Mary's gentle touch. Have you experienced Mary's healing in your family? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more miraculous family healing stories.